सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गौ गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, devotees of Goddess Guru Krishna Prabhupada. You're all welcome to today's SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM discourse. Shri SALIKA, Hare Krishna. Salika Prabhu, you may unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, if you are ready, we'll put the rest on the screen. And then
you can start. By mercy.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Am I clear? Am I quite audible?
Yeah, your audio is okay.
Okay, very good. So let's see here. Okay, so you may take it from here, Prabhuji.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritam Narayachaiva Narotama Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nastaha Praisu Abhadrisu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistike. Reading from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, 1st Canto, chapter 13, text number 49. Soyam Hadya Bhagavan Bhuta Bhavana Kalarupo Vatil Nosyam Abhavaya Suradvisam Adhyatma Arajan Bhagavan Bhuta Bhavan Kala Rupo Vatil No aham abhavaya suradvisham soyam hadyam araja bhagavan bhuta bhavan kalarupo bhaktirnosya abhavaya suradvisham. Word for word translation. Sa, that Supreme Lord. I am the Lord Sri Krishna. Adyaha, at present. Maharaja, O King. Bhagavan, this personality of God. Bhuta Bhavana, the creator or the father of everything created. Kalarupa, in the disguise of all devouring time. Avaltina, descended. Asyaham, upon the world. Abhavaya, for eliminating. Suradvisham, those who are against the will of the Lord. Translation purport by His Evangelist Labai Charanaravinda Sibar Tivirente Swami Patita Pavandega Guru Sidro Doshla Prabhupada Kijai. That Supreme Personality of Godhead by Sri Krishna, in the guise of all devouring time, Kala Rupa, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. Purport by His Evangelist Prabhupada. There are two classes of human beings, namely the envious and the obedient. Since the Supreme Lord is one and the Father of all living beings, the envious living beings are also His son, but they are known as the Asuras. But the living beings who are obedient to the Supreme Father are called Devatas or demigods, because they are not contaminated by the material conception of life. Not only are the Asuras envious of the Lord and even denying the existence of the Lord, but they are also envious of all other living beings. The predominance of Asuras in the world is occasionally rectified by the Lord when He eliminates them from the world and establishes a rule of Devatas. Like the Pandavas, his designation as Kala in disguise is significant. It's not at all dangerous, but is the transcendental form of eternity, knowledge and bliss. For the devotees, his factual form is disclosed, and for the non-devotees, he appears like Kala Rupa, which is casual form. This casual form of the Lord is not at all pleasing to the Asuras, and therefore they think of the Lord as formless in order to feel secure that they will not be vanquished by the Lord. Om Agyanam Timirandasya Gyanam Gyanam Shalakaya Shaksho Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadakam Tadati Swam Padantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Davaneshwari Vrishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Karpataru Vyascha Kripa Sundhuvyas Ivascha Patitanam Pavashnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Mukhaṁ Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagayate Girim Yat Kripat Vande Sri Guru Dinatarinam. Vancha Karpataru Vyascha Kripa Sundhuvyas Ivascha Patitanam Pavashnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Soyam Adya Ma'araja Bhagavan Bhuta Bhavana Kala Rupo Vakti Nosyaham Abhavaya Suradisham. That Supreme Personality of God, Lord Sri Krishna, in the guise of all devouring time, Kala Rupa, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. Hare Krishna. I hope I can be heard very clearly.
Yes.
So first and foremost, I want to offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of God and Narayan, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. I offer my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava Parampara, right from the Brahma to our Jagat Guru, Patita Pavan, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, our dear most spiritual master, by whose mercy we have the opportunity to sit down before the assembled devotees to open our dumb mouth. His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Krishna Pad. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all of the superior Vaishnavas, by whose mercy we are able to receive the mercy of the spiritual master. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all of the wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are right on this platform, giving me the opportunity to purify myself on this path of bhakti, which is the ultimate activities of one who has fallen into this condition. So I pray that by all your mercies and the mercy of the Parampara, I'll be able to render service given this evening in Nigeria, morning somewhere else, and afternoon some other places, that by the end of this service, my journey back home, back to Godhead, will have been reduced drastically. Hare Krishna. Whenever it comes to talking about Bhagavatam, even though I'm such a dull-headed, fallen unqualified, qualified by the mercy of the spiritual master, some kind of ecstasy rises in my heart, because even though I do not know what to say, how to say, or what to say, but because of the words of the Acharyas never goes in vain, that whoever hears the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM or recites SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM according to Srila Rupa Goswami, quoting the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, the position of such a person is Nirnetam, meaning that such a person is already 1 foot inside Goloka Vrindavan, the ultimate destination of those who have gotten the blessings of the Lord. And that time and the present time to get into that place is just a matter of time. So that realization, that ecstasy, that knowledge that this Bhagavatam awards all great benediction to living beings who are fortunate enough to come in contact with it, either by hearing, by speaking, or distributing the Bhagavatam, gets such a wonderful ultimate benediction. I feel always enlivened when I had this opportunity. This evening here, we're discussing SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM in continuation of the discussions that we've been hearing. One of the long verses in the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, this chapter 13, the Sarastra quits home, is such an interesting one. Of course, all the verses of SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, even a word from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, remembrance of just one word from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM awards the greatest benediction. But in this particular subject, titled the Sarastra Krit Om, is very significant and important for those of us who are conditioned in this material world. Because the character, the personality of this Sarastra depicts the example of one who is in this material world. In this material world, there are different kinds of living entities. And the character of this Sarastra, of course, we all know the stories of this Sarastra. So many speakers narrated the pastimes, the previous activities of this Sarastra that has put him in that situation. And we're not going to be focusing much on that today because Prabhupada, in the purport of today's text, focuses on the 2 types of living entities that are existing in this material world. The position of the Lord in relation to these 2 types of living entities as the Supreme Father, and he went further as a 3rd point in the purport. First, he talked about 2 types of living entity. He talked about the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as non-partial. He talked about how the Lord, not being partial, exhibit that non-partiality in 2 ways. When he descends, this time around, Krishna has descended and is exhibiting that quality of non-partiality in 2 major ways. He exhibited it to those who are devotees and to those who are non-devotees. That is the 3 major points Prabhupada raised in this purport. So, the personality of this Sarastra relates to a conditioned soul in this age. Why? When we look at the Krishna book, the very first chapter of Krishna book, when we look at the storyline, when we look at Mahabharata, it's a little bit complex because it's elaborate. But when we look at Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada depicted the purpose of the Lord coming and when he comes into this material world. Of course, in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, text number 7 and 8, Lord Krishna has given this. But one thing that is significant in that first line of Krishna book, chapter 1, is that Srila Prabhupada mentions how the Lord, when he wants to come into this material world, he created a drama kind of a type. He set a drama picture to be able to execute, to engage in his pastimes. And when enacting this pastime, just like a movie writer, the Lord writes the scripts himself, and he put different characters in those films for different purposes, for different lessons to be learned, for the benefit of those who are going to be the audience watching that drama. So this terrestrial, in this particular drama of the Lord's incarnation, is depicted to show this kind of living entities which are very prominent. In the pop of Prabhupada mentioned that in this age, the character of this terrestrial is even in today's world can be considered saintly, meaning that the living entities in Kali Yuga are 1,000 times. They are 1,000 times worse than this terrestrial. So therefore, can you just please excuse me? I'm hearing a continuous banging. There's no one around now, and I don't know who is there. Just keep banging, and it's distracting my attention. Sorry, dear devotees, is the neighborhood children, they want to fetch water, and because there's nobody to attend to them, the knocking of the temple gate is just distracting. Back to our subject. So we're describing that the living entities that in this age are 1,000,000 times worse than this terrestrial. If we put the character of this terrestrial vis-a-vis the living entity that are born in this age, this terrestrial will be considered a saintly man, meaning that we're so worse. So therefore, in the purpose, Srila Prabhupada started by explaining that there are two classes of human beings in this material world, and they are categorized into obedient and the envious ones. In the Bhagavad Gita, we've seen in chapter 15, in the explanation, the Prabhupada explains there are two categories of living entities. There it describes them as Nitya Siddhas and Nitya Bharas, eternally liberated and eternally conditioned. But even among and he explained that further, the Nitya Siddhas are liberated, so they never committed any mistakes. They come into this material for different activities. And in the story of Mahabharata, which the Lord enacted, we find this kind of category. But this is not talking about this classification of people. This description in this purport is not talking about those two classifications used in that context. In this context, the description of the two types of living entities are under the Nitya Bhadas, the eternally conditioned souls. The Nitya Bhadas, or the first category of two kinds of living entities in this material world, are different. But when you further bring down the Nitya Bhadas, or the eternally conditioned souls, there are two types of them. And that is what Prabhupada is referring to in this purport. They are both under the classification of conditioned souls in the material world. But some of them, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Yeshem tu antagata papam man karmani. Te don't babini mota, Vajante did have return. There are some kind of living entities that by natural inclination, they are attracted to engage in pious activities. And because they are engaging in pious, they are considered obedient. Although they are fallen, they are conditioned, but their nature is that they want to do things according to rules and regulations as given by the scriptures. You find them in the different forms of religious settings. They engage in different types of religious activities. Some are not even directly attached to any religious organization, but they engage in some morality code. According to Wikipedia, there are 2,500 so-called religions in today's world. And some of them do not even acknowledge in the nature of the personality of God, but they believe in the Shintoism, some of these ancient philosophies, though they do not for any reason acknowledge that the Lord is a person or that there is a Lord that exists, but they are attracted to morality based on the most of material nature which they are born under. But there are the second class of living entities, according to their conditioning, under the influence of the most of material nature they are born. They are naturally envious of the Supreme Personality of God. They will never engage in pious or moral code of existence. And for these two classes of persons, Lord Krishna explained how he relates to them. In the Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text number 29, Lord Krishna said, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dvesto sti na priyaha ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya mayite teshu chapi aham. The Lord is saying that I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I'm equal to her. Then he added that, but for whoever renders services unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and also a friend to such a person. This is a distinction. So these two classes of persons that is being described, or two types of entities that is being described, which I explained earlier, that they are under the category of conditioned soul. One is engaged. And when we go further, these pious ones, those who are not envious, they are all further divided into several categories. In the purport to chapter 4, text number 11 of Krishna, Papa elaborately explained that they are further divided into several classifications. It is not that the non-envious are all the same. There is not that there are only one type of non-envious living entities. There are so many classifications of non-envious because there are souls. They are not envying God. They know that God exists there, but God's business is not their business. They don't have any business with God, but they are not envious of him. They don't care about his laws. They follow their own laws. But when they talk about God, they say, yes, he's there. That supreme being is there. There are other classifications of people who are not envious of the supreme personality of God. These people, not only that they are not envious of God, but they try to bridge the gap in between them and God. They finding the connection that actually exists between them and God. This category of people are in religious lives. All these people are non-envious. And even among those who are envious, not envious, above those who are not just, they call themselves moralists. Above them are those who are engaged in religion. And there are those even those who are not envious of him, that they engage in religious activities in ignorance. Although they are trying to understand and glorify and appreciate God, but their mode of understanding and trying not to be envious of God end up being in ignorance because they end up offending the Lord. And above those class of persons are those who, although also this class of persons, they don't understand God, but they try as much as possible to follow the scriptures. Among those persons who are not envious, who have come to that platform, who try to follow the scriptures, the word of God, few of them, very few, they come onto the path of transcendence, the path of devotion. They try to render service to the Supreme Lord. They try to know who the Lord is and try to render service to him. And of all of this category of non-envious human beings on the earth, then you find hardly one kind of person. They know Krishna, that yes, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they follow the path of bhakti. So when Krishna is saying in chapter 9, verse 26, he's talking about this classification, this category of living entities who are engaging in bhakti. He's not talking about a religious man, because a religious man is not yet on the platform of bhakti. And that is what Krishna says at the end of Bhagavad Gita. Those people who are on the platform of religion, they have not surrendered, they have not come to bhakti. They are engaging in some form of religion. But what those classifications Krishna is talking 9:29 is talking about those who have come to the zenith. They have engaged in all kinds of pious activities. They have engaged in all forms of religious activities. They have come to the platform of bhakti. Such class of persons Krishna is referring to here, they are in him, is in them. But away from these non-envious persons, whose summit is that position of a bhakta, there are those who are very envious. Although here in the purport, they are described as what? Demons. And when we say demons, generally a picture is painted in our forehead, depending on the level of our understanding. When we say demon, generally, materially, somebody thinks a very ugly face, black, with 3 horns or 4 horns on his head. But when we look at the story of Mahabharata, when we look at the battle of Kurukshetra, we realize that a demon necessarily does not mean with 2 heads, one with 2 arms. When we see the character of Duryodhana, Shakuni, when we see Lord Krishna perfectly enacted that pastime, and even in the camp of the Pandavas, there are also demons. We remember the story of Bhima marrying a demon, and the demon beget a son, which fought on the part of the Pandavas. So it's also a demon. So in other words, there are different classifications of envious persons who are described as demons. So demon is not just straightforward line. Or when we say a demon, sometimes devotees will make that mistakes also. Sometimes when somebody is not in bhakti, we consider all of them, they are all demons. No, that is not. A demon could be even someone, even in devotion and service, just like we see in the camp of the Pandavas. But the classification of demon nature may be different. So when Prabhupada is talking in this purpose, actually, it's a very deep statement. And like I said sometimes ago, in every purport of Srila Prabhupada, he gives a milestone. He gives a milestone, meaning that he goes to explain something very elaborately deep. So the demons naturally are not just naturally some kind of persons who are murderers, who are witches or wizards. The demons can be anywhere. It can be in the assembly of Vaishnavas. It can be in the devotee camp. It can be in religious setting. It can be anywhere. In fact, in one of the purports in chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that in Kali Yuga, that demons, they will enter into religious organizations, not just religious organizations. They will even enter into such a very transcendental organization like Krishna consciousness. And they follow all rules very nicely. Like Hiranyakasipu. They will follow nicely. They will dress in the garment of a sannyasi even. You may be surprised. They may even become a guru. They will carry danda. They will sit on the VSS and they will speak philosophy. So when we're talking about the envious persons, so because Prabhupada put it so simple, the envious and the non-envious, who are devotees and demons. So we should understand this is a deep statement Prabhupada is making. He's not just talking about some far distance demons. Prabhupada is talking in reality that these demons, they could be anywhere. In one of his lectures, Swami Krishna, some years back, he gave a lecture. He said, your guru could be a demon. A bhakta sleeping on the same ashram with you could be a demon. And demon can be anywhere. So we should have this at the back of our mind. So therefore, according to this classification, depending on where each and every one of us are situated, Krishna relates accordingly. And that is why Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, the Supreme Personality of God is the Supreme Father of every living entity. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, text number 3 and 4, Lord Krishna, he explained that. He said, the total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth. And it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the birth of all living beings in this material world, O son of Bharata. So all living entities that's found in this material world are coming from the same one source. Then he goes further in the second verse. He said, it should be understood that all species of life, Sarva Yoni should come to ya, Mutaya Sambhavad, ya, Tasha Brahma, Mahabhi, Yoni, Aham Bija, Pradapita. That it should be understood very clearly that all species of life, O son of Kunti, Arjun, they are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I'm the seed giving Father. So Lord Krishna is explaining why he is not partial. Because they are all coming from him. They are all his babies. They are all his children. They are all the children of the Supreme Personality of God. So naturally, like as a father, he relates with everyone equally. In the previous verse to that, in chapter 8, 10, verse 8, one of the first Chatusloki verse, Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhava, mata sarva prabhatate, iti matwa bhajanti mam, buddha bhava samamvita. Lord Krishna is explaining. He says that everything, they all emanating from me. In other words, when Krishna is saying that he's talking about everything, is giving birth, Brahman. So he's not just talking of human beings. He's talking of the cat, the dog, the goat, the everything, the demigods. And these two classes of living entity are spread across all these categories of living entities. And these categories of living entities, they could either exist in the material world, they could exist in the spiritual world, in the heavenly planet, they could exist in the hellish planet. But these categories of divinity are spread across the three worlds: higher planetary system, middle planetary system, and the lower planetary systems. So therefore, the Lord said, I'm not partial. I can never be partial. Why? Because they are all my children, just like a father. The father does not say, because that's my particular son. In my adage, they said a son cannot be, there's an adage that no matter, a son cannot be too bad, that the father will say, give the child to a lion to devour. No father does that. That my child is become so bad, go and give him to the lion to eat up. No father does that. He tries, even when the child is going completely astray, he keeps on trying and trying and trying and trying and trying to do what? To reinstate the child back to what the father wants. So the Lord says, I'm doing that to my obedient children, like a father in this material world. I send him to school, I give him pocket money, I give him every support to excel. For that child who is disobedient, he doesn't want to go to school, he doesn't want to do things rightly, the father still spends on that child. But he spends on that child, sending the child to where? They call it one name in my place here. There was a name. A place where they rehabilitate children. There's a popular name here, I've forgotten the name now. So, but the father has spent money. He spent his hard-earned money on that child, but he sent him to that rehabilitation schools. He's spending money. He's spending $1,000 on the boy that is excelling, that is studying, that is going forward. But he's spending the same amount of money on the other son. But he's sending him to work, a rehabilitation center. The same way he's spending, he's showing his love. So if somebody who does not understand, will say, this father must be partial. Why is he sending this one to the best university and he's sending down to the rehabilitation center? Because that is the need of that particular child. In the same way, the Supreme Personality of God, when he's put a living entity in a cat body, in a goat body, in a snake body, he chastises the child. He kills the child. He is exhibiting his love. So naturally, in material understanding, when we talk about love, love naturally means that it is favorable to our material senses. Of course, love is always positive, it's always favorable, but love is not always palatable. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Paritanaya sadhuna vinashaya dustitam damasam stapanataya sambhavami juge juge. That when I come for these two classes of beings who are in this material world, what will I come and do? Those who want to go up, who want to excel, who want to study, who want to contribute to the development of the world, I will come and give them encouragement. And for those ones that are creating troubles, who will not want the one who wants to excel to go peacefully, he said, I come and I do what? I take them out of place so that they don't create continuous problem. That is the supreme mission of the Supreme Personality of God. So that's how it relates. And depending on which divide of the of the position the living entity is, it sees the Lord in that capacity. So Srila Prabhupada said in the book that the Supreme Personality of God, it descends in what? In his form of Kala Rupa. So the word Kala Rupa is very significant. Although the Lord is not dangerous, but to those who are demons, he is sin. Now, the Lord is, we've explained how the Lord relates. Now, Prabhupada is explaining to us here now how we relate to God. In the last paragraph of the purport, it's now explaining how the Lord relates to the living, and how the living now relates to the Supreme Personality of God. Prabhupada is explaining the later part of the purport. He's saying that although the Lord is not dangerous, he has descended in the transcendental form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, as Lord Brahma has acknowledged. Ishvara Parama Sakchit Ananda Brigraha. In his eternal form of Sakchit Ananda for the devotees. Because the devotees are favorable. Just like that child who wants to progress in life, who wants to study, who wants to acquire skills, to be able to contribute to the development of the glory of the Father. He gets that kind of support. And for those who are non-devotees, for that child who is disobedient, the Father will act to him. To him, he sees the Father as a very wicked father. Just like a mischievous living entity. When he's in the prison, this policeman is a very bad person. This government is very bad. They've kept me in this place. But that is the love of the government. Because the government knows that if I allow this whimsical, misbehavior kind of attitude, person in the society, not only he will disturb himself, he will disturb others. So that person who is mischievous, what does he see the Lord as? He sees him as Kalarupa, time consuming. He sees him as death personified. He is afraid of him. Just like a criminal is afraid of the police. When you talk about God in the presence of that, we have had this experience. Some of us have had this experience. When you go on Sankirtan, when you go on the streets, and you try to give a book to someone, you can imagine how they run. They run out of fear just by seeing books, just by seeing the features of the Lord. Because they're sinful. And we've seen, even those of us who do not know anything about Krishna, we do not know about Bhakti, we do not know about the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of God. When we see the deities for the first time, when we meet the devotees for the first time, that sentiment of attraction is naturally there. Why? Because as Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, Yesham tu anta gata papan, sinful activities are already eradicated. So we can appreciate the Lord. So we see the Lord, we see the devotees as wonderful. We see the temple as a place to be. We see the Vaishnava Sangha as a place to associate with. But a criminal, no matter how much you pamper him, he will not like to stay in the middle of the policemen, unless Nigerian police. Because he knows that they will go to, it is in Nigeria, it is not very difficult to go on the streets and you see a policeman smoking ganja with the criminal, even in uniform. But in a normal society, no matter what you want to do, tell a criminal to let us go and visit a policeman on the train. He's afraid because the moment I get there, I'll be captured, I'll be punished. That is his nature. So this type of double level entities, when they hear about the Lord, they become scared. They don't want to associate. They don't want to come near. They don't want to relate. Why? Because they're naturally sinful. But the devotees of the Lord, when they talk about God, when they hear about God, when they see the form of the Lord, when they see the book of the Lord, when they talk about the Lord, they become naturally attracted. And that is what is being described in this text we're reading today. That the Supreme Personality of God, Lord Krishna, in the guise of all the boring Kalarupa, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. the likes of this terrestrial, who are desperately envious of the pious, non-envious person like Yudhishthira and the whole of the Pandavas. So this is the pastimes of the Lord. So when the Lord says, I come to this material world to attract the pious, to annihilate the miscreants, it shouldn't be difficult to understand for us. The Lord created all of these personalities just for the purpose of what? To attract our mind. For those of us who are ready. And that is why he said in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, those who want to know me as the Supreme Personality of God, I give them remembrance, 15:15. Those who want to forget me, I give them all the facilities. They will forget me completely. And those who want to have knowledge of me, I make myself available. And when I make myself available like that, what happens? They engage in my devotion and service. And when they engage in my devotion and service, what happens? They come back to me. And Krishna promised, for such who would engage in my bhakti, there is no doubt they will come to me. One may not be perfect in the beginning, but the moment one takes to the process of this bhakti, just by hearing Krishna now, just once, as Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, the greatest danger is already averted. Because such a person is going back to God and is already secured. Now, depending on how he waters the fruit or the plant of bhakti, that accelerates or delays the time he gets into that environment. So in devotional service, when we look at ourselves, we all can understand, we can realize where we are in the process of devotional service. In other part of type of religious setting, and even in some spiritual setting like Krishna consciousness, which is a purely spiritual practice, sometimes people say that we don't know who will go to God. We cannot tell. But that is not true. For a Krishna conscious person, we can tell just by looking at the activities, the character. We can tell this person is going to Lord Brahma's abode. This person is going to Indraloka. This person is going to take a snake body in his next life. It's not difficult. In those early days, I don't know whether we still have it in the new editions of the Bhagavad Gita. There is one of the pictures that used to attract me very much, where there is a depiction of a devotee, a yogi, and a camel. And you see a devotee is very busy. That picture is one of the pictures in the Bhagavad Gita, the transcendentalist. I know some of you remember the pictures I'm talking about. So for one in devotional service, there is no doubt. If you're going to take another material body, if a devotee says, I don't know where I will go when I quit this material body, it means it's not in devotional service yet. And that is why Srila Bhakti Maharaj said, we should rejoin Krishna consciousness on a daily basis. Because when we rejoin Krishna consciousness, when we step into Krishna consciousness, just like everything becomes clear when the sun rises in the day, everything will be clear to us. How can someone who has the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, nectar of devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, nectar of instruction, says, I don't know my destination? How is that possible? It's not possible. And one who has not read or does not read any of this means he's not yet in Krishna consciousness. Because Krishna consciousness is not another social gathering in the name of spirituality. It's a serious process of study. On Sunday, I was given a Bhagavad Gita class. So one newcomer came after listening to the Bhagavad Gita class. He's the first person to raise his hand. And he says, I want to ask a question. And I said, yes. He said, from all what you've said so far, one thing that kept on banging in my head is that, correct me if I'm wrong, that this your religion, should I call it a religion or, I don't know, a movement? He said, but I don't know what I should call it. But he said, it appears that it is for those who want to study. I said, you are the right student because you have captured the essence of my lecture. He who doesn't want to study he is not a Krishna. He has not joined Krishna consciousness. Because when he joined Krishna consciousness, so there is no excuse. I can say, okay, I cannot read and write. But Krishna has given you the ear. Maharaj Parikshit, the hero of Bhagavatam, he doesn't have to read. He doesn't have to write. He just sat down at the feet of a great personality like Sukadeva Goswami, and he entered into the kingdom of God. So where is the excuse? Just by hearing this wonderful Amala Purana, given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, the guarantee to enter to the kingdom of God is guaranteed. So there is no loss for the mission. There is no excuse. And so Sukadeva will confirm that in this same count of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Savam Paroda, Yato Bhakti Adokshaja. Ahaituki Apratiyata, Yayatma Supersedati. No impediment, no anything can impede this process of devotional service. Nothing. No guru, no president, no temple commander, no demon has the power to stop you on the path of bhakti unless you don't want to take it to it. So I will stop here because the time is fast spent so that we can all interact a little more on the text and then share realization. So I'll read the text again. So yam adyam araja bhagavan bhuta bhavana kalarupo bhaktino syaham abhavaya suradisham. That Supreme Personality of God, Lord Sri Krishna, in the guise of all the warring time, Kalarupa, has not descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, SALIKA Prabhu. Thank you for the justice done to the text being discussed today. So, fellow devotees, if anyone has a question, comment, realizations, you are welcome to do that now.
And if there are some chastisements also, they are all welcome.
Don't ask for chastisements because you may regret when they start pouring.
Devotees chastisements are nectar. They take you beyond the level of conditioned life.
Prabhuji, I have a question from the text. I'll put it up again. Let's see here.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Krishna is saying that he comes to this world to eliminate the envious people from the world. Now, there is this popular saying. I think it's across the globe. Every country, every culture has same saying, even though it might be a little different, but the essence is the same. That why do you have to always give somebody fish? Instead of giving someone fish, why don't you train or teach him how to fish? So Krishna comes into this world to destroy the envious. Why would he come to destroy the envious when he knows that after he has destroyed the envious and gone back to his abode, there is going to be another batch of envious people? So it keeps recycling. These envious people keeps recycling. So wouldn't it be better for Krishna to just get rid of this material world, because the envious people are only found in this material world? Get rid of this material world so that we all become free. What do you think? I mean, Krishna is Krishna. We cannot question him why he does what, but sometimes as little kids, I think we also have the right to ask Krishna, why wouldn't you want to do this? Why would you want to do that? So my question is, why Krishna? Because personally, I am down here in this material struggling like hell. I do not want to be here, but here I am. Whether I like it or not, I'm here. If somebody is practicing envy, Krishna comes and destroys that particular being. But another being will come after he has gone. So why doesn't he end this material world completely? That's my question.
Thank you very much for waiting for this.
Hare Krishna. Wouldn't that be beautiful? No more material world.
Om Punam Ada Punam Puna Punam Udasyate Punam Punam Adaya Punam Punam Eva As Isyate. In the invocation of our Upanishad, that verse is quoted. When we say someone is absolute, then everything must be in him. Otherwise, then it's not an absolute. So for Krishna to be absolute, to be complete absolute, to be given that name, absoluteness, everything must exist in him. If it does not exist in him, then it's not absolute. Because the moment any desire of the living entity cannot be fulfilled, that means his position as the supreme Godhead is not complete. So the material nature or the material world is part of the completeness of the complete absolute personality of Godhead. Because if the father says that I have 12 kids, and because I love all of the kids, I'll give all of them jollof rice, or I'll give them sweet rice. What about the day-old baby? The day-old baby will be killed if he eats sweet rice. He needs milk. And sometimes it doesn't even need the processed milk. It needs the raw milk of the mother's breast. So that is the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It supplies everyone's needs. So naturally, there are living entities who want to be in this kind of environment. So Krishna makes this material world available for them as a loving father who does not deny the child of whatever the child desires. So the incompleteness of the material world is part of the completeness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And why because the living entity will continue to go. We see in the prayers of Vasudev that they take everyone away. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu answered his prayer, but immediately all of them that were on the earth at that time was taken back to Godhead. Another feels it. Because why? The living entities, minute independence can never be taken off. Because if it is taken off, then the Lord is not the Supreme Personality of God any longer. And the living entity, what he asks is his desire to make a choice. And if the Lord says, you cannot desire, you can desire everything, but you cannot desire this one thing, go to material world, because I will not create it, then there's some problem there. So the reality is that, yes, material world is not a pleasurable place, but out of his loving fatherly nature, even when we have desired wrongly and come into this material world and we realize that it's a wrong place, on our own, we can't get out. So he still follows us here. That is his absolute loving sentiment. He comes in with us, waiting for that moment when we realize that this is not the place to be. And when we realize that, it takes us out of this place to his abode. And those who, even for the period of the duration they have come here, they could not realize that, he will eliminate them from this material world, just like the government takes a criminal away from the society. He does not kill the society, the citizen. He puts him in the cell. So when Krishna, when he kills the demons, the Jivatma is not killed, he's eliminated. That's what the Papa used the word eliminated. He didn't use the word destroy. They are eliminated from here. They're taken out of this place because they no longer can stay here. And of course, this material world is called Mrityu Loka, because whether or not, everyone here must leave this world. Now, depending on the nature of that person, he leaves at a particular time as arranged by Krishna, or is forcibly taken out by his own will at his own time. So even this material world is a manifestation of the love of God. And if he withdraws that, then his love will not be complete to his part and parcels in this material world.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anadi Nidanam Prabhu, please unmute.
Yeah, so yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Pranam. Okay. So, Prabhu, in the course of your lecture, you talked a bit about the types of religion in Africa, being personalist or impersonalist religion. So, see, and our African type of religion, even though they have deities and we worship them, can that be classified as personalist or impersonalist religion? That's what I wanted to know.
Thank you.
I hope you got my question.
Yeah, I got your question very well. Typical African culture is personalist. But who the person the Africans worship is what is in question. But typical, unlike in the West, where you find people, or sometimes in India, where you find people talking about impersonal God, God that does not have a form. A typical African culture or tradition has a clear understanding that there is a personality. In my language, it is called Olu Odumare, meaning is the king of all kings. So the African culture, tradition, wherever you find it, understand that the supreme is a person. But now, the difference between the Vedic understanding and the African culture understanding is that the conception of who is that supreme personality is what is different. And that is not too difficult to understand. Just like a common example, if we enter into a house and we hear an aroma, I like one advert. Recently, I watched on the TV. It was an advert of pasta, Indomie pasta, but they blend it in jollof flavor. and the guest was coming into the house. So he was perceiving the aroma of jollof rice. So when he came in, he said, oh, I come at the right time. You're about serving lunch. So I like to eat that jollof rice. I can perceive you're cooking jollof rice. And the host said, oh, yes, but we're not cooking jollof rice. We're not serving jollof rice. We're serving Indomie jollof. So our Vedic teachers or acharyas have described that the God is realized in 3 ways. As impersonal Brahma, as the Paramatma, the super soul, and Bhagavan. That realization of Bhagavan is the zenith, but it's not everyone that comes there. But even in impersonalism, as depicted in African culture, when you see an African traditional person say that Olodumare or God, we cannot be seen, when he tells you like that, he's not denying the fact that he has a form. He's just saying that you do not have the qualification, what we call adhikar in Vedic knowledge. You do not have the qualification to see him. In African culture, we know of this iron god. We know of the sun god. We know of the rain god. And in the ancient times, up to about 200 years ago, a typical African man who is a traditionalist can invite the sun god and talk to him. After some time, the generations that follow cannot call his presence, but they can still invoke his presence mentally. But our own generation, neither we do even have the qualification to call them those demigods, talk less of seeing them. So African culture, in essence, is a personalist philosophy or understanding of God. But the understanding of the supreme God is what is not clear in African culture. But a typical African traditional worshiper knows that there is a supreme God who is a person. And depending on your capacity, you may or may not be able to visualize that personality. Or sometimes the person consider some of the devas or demigods to be the personality of Godhead. I don't know if I answer your question, and I didn't need another problem.
Thank you so much, Salika Prabhu. Thank you for the answer. I very well remember I was like a toddler when my mom told me this story. I was a toddler. My mom was giving me a shower. It was in the night. And I don't really understand or know why she told me the story, because I think I was so little that she shouldn't have shared that with me at the time. My mom shared with me at the time that in Africa, we have compound house. Yeah. So in our compound house in the village, she told me there used to be a god that used to visit the house. And she described the god, that the god has 4 heads. And I never heard anybody talk about 4-headed God until I became a devotee. and I was thinking to myself, how would Lord Brahma reveal himself to these seemingly ordinary villagers, So, yeah, our people, they really, really were spiritual, very spiritual. But I have a question from the verse you quoted to support what you were saying in the text we discussed today. You quoted 9:29 of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is saying, let me see if I can pull it up.
Samuham.
Yeah.
Some of Sarabute. I mean, do still na priyas.
Well, he is saying, Krishna is saying that he envies no one, nor is he partial to anyone. That is what Krishna is saying, so I accept it. It's Krishna. He is saying that he is equal to all. I accept it. Then he says, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion.
It's a friend.
So that means that it's a friend, is in me, and I'm also a friend to him. Well, the problem I have, or what my doubt and my concern is here, me in devotion. It's not just rendering service unto Krishna, but the service being rendered to Krishna must be done in devotion.
Exactly.
Now, devotion, according to the dictionary, says, what is it? What is my dictionary? Okay, let me share this.
Okay.
According to the dictionary definition of devotion, here it says.
Please zoom it a little bit so that it can be readable for audience.
Okay, let me see. Oh no, actually, okay. This is the Zoom part. Well, it's not very clear. Let me read.
Okay.
It says, feelings of ardent love, a strong positive emotion of regard and affection. So I would like to end on that. A strong positive emotion of regard and affection. And considering myself, especially when I used to live in the temple doing full time, I did lots of service where we call it devotional service. But most of the time, whatever service I rendered was not out of love. And so when someone is asked to render a service by his temple president, by his temple commander, or by his guru, or whatever, whoever, and does this service without love, then how do we attend Krishna? That's my question.
Thank you very, very much for that question, Prabhu. I touched that in the course of the lecture because I wanted to actually, I'm fascinated about that concept. And that was why when I was explaining that the fact that Prabhupada is using the word non-envious naturally does not mean that non-envious persons are demigods. Does not mean that person is a devotee. It doesn't naturally mean that the person is a devotee. And that was why I was explaining that no, someone may not be envious, but he's just a moralist. He's just engaged in morality. He's not envious about God. He's not envious of God or other even living entities. He has a good will to everyone or God. But even beyond that, but he's not a devotee. And even beyond that, there are people who not just they are moralists, but they are religious people. And they go to church, they go to mosque. They're engaging in what? Pious activities. It's not devotion. Because religious ethics gives us opportunity to act in piety. That is what religious gives us, piety. It gives us piety. Religion does not give us bhakti. Religious does not, I repeat that. Sometimes people think that a religious person is giving us bhakti. No. And that's why I proceeded to explain that verse 728 of Bhagavad Gita. Yesham tu antagata papam genamam punya karmana. When one has engaged in such piety, after many, many lives, and not just then, but even also in this life, and those piety has accumulated and has given birth to supreme piety. What do we call that supreme piety? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said himself that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Brahmananda Brahmite Koni Bhagavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prashite Hai Bhakti Latabiga. It is because, and we can see that in the life of Narad Muni. Narad Muni, in his previous life, he engaged in piety. Narada Muni was not a Mahabhagavat. He was engaging in rendering service, assisting his mother. And he accumulated piety by that. And because, and Narada Muni himself explained, he said, by my nature, I'm not attracted to those ungodly things. I'm very gentle. I'm very pious. And those pious activities of mine attracted me to saintly persons, Krishna. And because of that attraction, I got the mercy. So it collaborates with that verse of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When that piety has accumulated, as Krishna himself confirmed, accumulated after many, many lives, then the word comes, the seed of bhakti is planted. And only when that seed of bhakti is planted, then one can start the path of bhakti. And when one starts the bhakti, then one can gradually grow in bhakti until it comes to Mahabhakti. And that we know in the 9th process as given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from Sadhu Sangha until it comes to what? Prima Bhakti. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the explanation. Srimad Mahaprabhu, please, you may unmute yourself. Hare Krishna, please.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat pranam to everybody. Salika Prabhu. Just a few comments. I think one about African tradition, whether it is personal or impersonal. Based on the last question, when devotees in the temple are rendering service, but not out of love, is that bhakti or not? So very good questions, and I'd like to make some contribution.
Please,
The first one, we have to understand impersonalism to be of various types. So there are the monists, there are the Advaita, and the what do you call them? So anyway, so especially in India, and I don't know exactly if that is African, but in India, there are those who are demigod worshippers who are also impersonalists. Why? So we should not just think that demigod worship equals to personalism. No. There are demigod worshippers in India who consider all the demigods to be different parts of the Supreme. So any one of them you worship, you're worshiping God. So that kind of mentality and understanding, probably it is also African. I don't know. I don't want to speculate. But we have to understand that demigod worship does not immediately mean you're personalist. So we have to understand this aspect of personalism, impersonalism. Those who believe that you can worship God in different forms. Even there are those who think that you can even worship the Murti of Krishna, but ultimately the Brahman is supreme. So we should not be confused about people worshiping different aspects of God and think that they are personalists. Not exactly. I would not be able to say exactly in what category the African mythology falls, because I don't know that deep. But we have to understand from where we're coming from the Vedic philosophy and Hindu tradition, that there are people who worship demigods, majority of them, and they're impersonalists. Okay, so that's one. Two is devotees who render service in the temple. but not out of love. Is that bhakti? Does that earn us the love of Krishna? Well, Krishna himself already answered this chapter, I think 4:16. Chatu I am Maya system, isn't it? Four types of no, isn't it? Chatu Vida Bhajantema.
Okay.
4 types of men render service unto him. So yes, not all those who are in the temple are there because they're searching for knowledge of God or wanting love of him. Many come for different reasons. And for that reason, their devotion or their service is on most of the time on the level of karma kanda. And even worse than that, even if it is not karma kanda, it is majority is self-serving. Once I can get anything from it, I will do it. If it will help me to get what I want, I will do it. So it's self-serving. It is karma kanda at best. And Srila Prabhupada said that majority of the devotees in ISKCON will end up in Swarga, in the heavenly planets. It did not say all the devotees in ISKCON will automatically go to Goloka Vrindavan, because he knows that many have come based on different motives. And Krishna, of course, recognized that. Krishna recognized that in the Bhagavad Gita. So whatever the motive is, Krishna says, but they are all magnanimous souls. So that is the beauty of it. So Krishna recognized whatever little service that is rendered, and whatever is the motive, whatever is the motive. I mean, we know it from the story of Putana. Putana had a wrong motive to want to feed Krishna with her breast. Krishna gave her liberation, just as he gave to Mother Yasoda. So whatever is the motive, Krishna, as long as you render service unto him, it's all good and everything. He accepts everything, perfectly, whether it is done with good intention or not, Krishna accepts. But best is to do with good intention. Best is to do with love. That is higher. But still, Krishna is so magnanimous that if he sees the good, he sees what you're doing, and sometimes it tries not to see the hidden motive. That is why Krishna is all good, all merciful. That is why it's all good. Otherwise, he will not be all good. He will be very partial. So that verse is still correct. It stands correct that Krishna is non-partial, and he accepts whatever service anyone renders unto him in love. So I think that these are the 2 contributions I like to make. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
So thank you very much, Srimad Prabhu, for that 2 comments. They're very interesting. On the first one, that not everyone who worships demigods is a personalist. Yes, that is correct. But when we say worshippers also, the reality is that there are different categories of worshippers. Those who are worshippers in knowledge, because when we see, even in Krishna consciousness, there are so many who are in part who does not have the knowledge of what Krishna is or what Krishna consciousness is. They're just attracted to the devotee, they're attracted to the ladies in the movement, they're attracted to the prasadam. And like you quoted, Chatu Vida Bhajantima, they come in with different motives. But those, when we say worshippers of demigod, in this category, we are talking about those who actually knows the demigod. And that was why I was explaining that there are different categories of demigod worshippers. And people, when we say a demigod worshipper, it does not necessarily mean that is worshiping the demigod, knowing who that demigod is. But there are those, when we say demigod in this context, we're talking about those who actually are worshiping demigod. And that's why I said 200 years ago. And those who are worshippers of Ogun, as at that time, when you go to them, they can invoke the Ogun god or Sango god or whatever god, and they interact. But those who claim to be worshippers of Ogun today are completely different. They don't even have the capacity to even call them. They just do rituals. So we are different categories of demigod worshippers. So when we say worshippers of demigod, we've seen many stories even in our scriptures. Those who are real worshippers of demigods, they can see the demigod. They can communicate with the demigod. We just celebrate Chitama Mahaprabhu's appearance, and we're talking about Sababuma Bhattacharya and many other of his who worship but Saraswati. Saraswati could appear to such a personality, and they will see him, talk to him. So even the worshippers of demigods in India, in Africa, or anywhere, those who are real, who can be classified as first class worshippers of demigod, can see and they can know. But there are people below them who just perceive or who just worship those demigods based on faith or some conception of family tradition and that. So when we say demigod worshipper, also, it could mean so many things. So it is not a general label that because it's a demigod worshipper, but a true worshipper of demigod must know that the demigod it must be a personalist. A true demigod worshipper must know that, yes, the demigods are persons. That's the category I'm talking. And then the second point, the Prabhupada made it easy for us when he quoted in the, for those who are rendering service in the devotional service, in chapter 10, verse 10 of Bhagavad Gita, second to the last paragraph, Prabhupada said, when a person knows the goal of life, because an average person in Krishna consciousness, what is the goal of Krishna consciousness or goal of life? And Prabhupada is referring to these classes of persons here. He said, when one knows the goal of life, but is addicted to fruit of activities, he is acting in karma yoga. When he knows that the goal is Krishna, but he takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, is acting in jnana yoga. And when he knows the goal and seeks Krishna completely in Krishna consciousness, that is beautiful. When he seeks Krishna in Krishna consciousness and devotional service, he is acting in bhakti yoga or buddhi yoga, which is the complete yoga. The complete yoga is the highest perfectional stage of life. That's a beautiful purpose by Srila Prabhupada is too much. Like one of my friends will say. So Prabhupada is always very clear. So when we say somebody come into bhakti, they are Kama Mishra Bhaktas. They just want some, but then devotional service accommodates everything. In the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, the same first canto here, it is mentioned somewhere that Akarama Saba Karma Uva, Mukcha Karma Udaradi. Different bhakti, you know, that whatever one wants, whatever one desires, he wants material thing. One is encouraged to take to the process of Krishna and worship Krishna, because ultimately, if one follows diligently, bhakti has the potency, the capacity to make that such a person develop, get purification and get into devotion and service. And because devotees who join the movement, who stays in the temple or comes from outside and render service, because they are rendering service to pure devotees, the efficacy of the pure devotees has the ability to transform their initial or primary intentions that brought them into the environment of bhakti to pure bhakti. That is the power of association with those who are devotees. Most of us will not be here. 90% or maybe 99% of those who come to Krishna consciousness also want some power, some mystic, some things of that. But when we come here by association with the pure devotees, the Prabhupada, the Acharyas, then with our desire gets purified gradually, and we develop devotion. Thank you very much for the comment, Prabhu.
No, 1 minute, please. Please. You got me wrong. You got me wrong.
Okay.
When I said that there are different types of demigod worshippers, and they may not be personalists. You got me wrong.
Okay.
I'm not saying that the worshippers of demigods don't know that their deities or the demigod they're worshiping is a person. They know. They know, both in Africa and in India. They do know that Mother Durga is a person. They know. They've seen many manifestations of this. They've heard the stories. In Africa also, Shango, they know it's a person. They've seen its manifestation. But they believe that all the demigods all form one God. So any one of them you worship is as good as worshiping Supreme. That is impersonalism. They know very well that the demigod is a person and they see the manifestation. There is no doubt. They do not doubt that the demigod is a person. No. So thinking that the demigod is a person doesn't make you a personalist. What is the ultimate? So they think that the ultimate is a combination of all the demigods together, and that is the supreme. So in one sense, it may be true, but that is not the supreme absolute truth. The absolute truth is that the Supreme Lord has his own personality. He is the chief of all beings. But they say, no, any one of the demigod you worship is as good as worshiping Supreme God. So that philosophy is very popular in India. And I don't know whether it is the equivalent of African philosophy. That much I don't know. But in India, that philosophy exists. And we have to very much understand that they are not personalists when they think like that. They are not at all personalists. They are impersonalists. So that's the point. I hope you get it.
Yeah, Srimad Prabhu, thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
I don't remember the verse, but I'm sure all of the devotees know, because it's a popular statement Prabhupada made several times, that even if one claims to worship God, if one does not know Krishna or does not accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such a worshiper is an impersonalist. And so even though the conception may be there that God is a person, but as far as they do not know who that person is and keep looking for who that person is, and sometimes make the mistake of his expansions or different aspects to be that absolute Godhead, makes them impersonal. I know, again, that lots of you know this particular person. I'm not going to mention name because it's a very big person, especially on social media. He talks so much about God, he talks so much about Krishna, he talks so much about Shiva, he talks so much about this, that he believes strongly that a Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, which is impersonal, manifests in such forms. So even though such a person may be talking about Krishna, Lord Shiva, but he still sees them as impersonal. So it depends, like both of you are saying, it depends on the particular person worshiping, whomever. But according to Srila Prabhupada, whoever is worshiping God, if that person does not know Krishna or does not accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of God, then such a person is impersonal. That is the more reason why when Srila Prabhupada wanted to register his organization, lots of the disciples suggested to him that he should register the International Society for God Consciousness. And he says, what do you mean by God? Because God is impersonal, but Krishna is a person. When you say God, people cannot describe who God is, but when we talk of Krishna, we can describe who Krishna is. So I think that's the difference. So obviously, you all say the same thing.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Yadinath Prabhu, do you have something to say? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, I haven't seen you for a while.
I'm sorry, I'm just jumping up and down. I'm just arriving at tempo now.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just learning, so I don't know what's really going on. I don't know the topic that is being discussed.
Oh, okay. Well, we're discussing.
Let me just listen and purify myself.
Well, it's okay. It's okay. I can put the verse on the screen, but let it be.
Hello?
Okay, this is His Grace SALIKA Prabhu discussed 1:13:49, and it says the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, in the guise of all devouring time, Kala Rupa, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world. So this is Narada Muni speaking to Maharaj Yudhishthira. Am I right, Salika? Am I right?
You're perfectly right, Prabhu.
Ah, okay. So anyone else with anything to say?
I'm sure Prabhuji have done a lot of justice.
Of course, he always does.
By the mercy of all of you, we're trying to do something.
And actually, this was like an impromptu class because he's stepping in for somebody else who was originally scheduled to speak. So we thank you so much, Prabhuji, for stepping in.
It's an opportunity.
Well, if no one has anything else to add or subtract or multiply or divide, then we're going to humbly request the devotees to unmute, and then we chant to beg Hare Krishna Maha and try to express our appreciation for our speaker and for all of us enjoying listening to SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. Jai. Hare
Krishna, Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Hare Bol.
Thank you all. Thank you all for the opportunity.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. Thank you.
Sati Devi ki jai.
Nice to see all of you. Hare Krishna.
Mitravinda Devi ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Sunita Devi ki jai.